But that leads me to my next point and my next segment, I guess, and that's talking about Miss Marvel. Because while it doesn't seem like there is a direct connection to Miss Marvel in any way with Hawkeye announcing its release date, I think actually this has some pretty interesting ramifications for when Miss Marvel is going to be released. Now, does this have any impact on how good the series is going to be? No. This is just me, as a Marvel fan, talking about what I think this means in terms of the release date of Phase 4 and just diving into the minutia and trying to figure out when is Miss Marvel going to be released. And I personally, I've thought about this a little bit since the announcement of the Hawkeye release date. I think there are compelling arguments for both Miss Marvel coming out this year before Hawkeye and also next year after Hawkeye. I think there are actually very, very compelling reasons for both, and we'll go into those right now. So, let's look at evidence for Miss Marvel coming out this year. Number one, it was originally slated to come out before Hawkeye this year. I do believe, at least. And if not, it was still at least supposed to come out this year. And I guess 1B is that Victoria Alonso, who is an executive producer at Marvel, has said, when directly asked, is Hawkeye and is Miss Marvel going to come out this year? And she said, yes, both are coming out this year. Now, I don't know if you know Victoria Alonso, but she is one of the higher-ups at Marvel, like, next to Kevin Feige. And so, I think things can change, obviously, since she last gave that interview. That interview was about a week ago. And, I mean, things could have changed within the last week, sure, and that's maybe why they announced the Hawkeye release date today. But she knows what she's talking about. So I think her saying that both Miss Marvel and Hawkeye are coming out this year should carry more weight than someone like, for example, Iman Vellani, who is in the show, obviously, but obviously doesn't have any control over when the show comes out. That's more of the executive stuff, and that's definitely something that Victoria Alonso should know. So that is one big point. And honestly, look, I know that because I'm going to list a bunch of evidence to suggest that Hawkeye is going to be released Miss Marvel is going to be released after Hawkeye. But I really do think that that's something important to keep in mind, is that when these people say, things like that, there is no reason for them to lie about it, I don't think. I think that for whatever reason, at the time of that interview, Victoria Alonso had full confidence that both Miss Marvel and Hawkeye are going to release in the same year, and the only way for that to happen, really, is for Miss Marvel to release before Hawkeye, on top of the fact that I do believe it was slated to be before Hawkeye. I could be wrong about that, but anyways, all that aside. Now here's a bunch of evidence that suggests that it's going to be delayed. And I think that, I'm very curious to hear why Victoria Alonso thought they were going to be both released at the same time, because there is actually a plethora of evidence to suggest, now that I'm looking at it, I know I said up top that there's actually a bunch of evidence for both sides. I'm looking at it now. It seems like there's actually a ton more evidence pointing to it being delayed to 2022. So we'll go into all that right now, and you guys have to let me know in the comments what you guys think. First of all, this is potentially, it doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it might, is that Hawkeye wrapped filming, I believe, about a month before Miss Marvel did. And that essentially means that their production was over before Miss Marvel. Now, Marvel can release and film and produce and do post-production on whatever they want, whenever they want. So just because Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, like for example, Avengers Endgame was filming before Captain Marvel, doesn't obviously mean that Captain Marvel is coming, before Avengers Endgame, or after Avengers Endgame, excuse me. That being said, it is interesting to note that Hawkeye did indeed finish production before Miss Marvel. The second thing is, look, you have this What If series coming out in August, and you can overlap the series if you wanted to, but I don't think that's what Marvel wants to do, obviously. And so the only way for it to really fit, it being Miss Marvel, between Hawkeye November 24th and What If, is to have it be basically late September, early October. And for that to happen, the interesting thing is that we can look at this on a canon side of like, oh, it doesn't really matter if Miss Marvel comes before Hawkeye. But what's really interesting about Hawkeye getting the release date first is that marketing is very indicative of when things are going to come out and why. And the reason is because usually Marvel, like clockwork, will start to promote their products 5 to 6 months before they're released. Wouldn't you know it, Hawkeye is releasing in 5 months, basically. Almost exactly. Now, the fact that Miss Marvel didn't get any promotion, and if it were coming out in, it's September, October, and it doesn't get promotion within 5 months is not a reason to panic. Like, for example, if Spider-Man No Way Home doesn't get a trailer until, August or September, it's not a reason to panic, because there are reasons that they're probably trying to hide Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, or whatever they're going to do. But what's interesting is that, well, yes, it's not very common, but it's still done that movie studios try to push their marketing towards the end. That's not what Marvel does. And also, it would mean that there's basically only 2 months for Marvel to market this series. And that's really not a lot of time, considering the fact that basically nothing has been released from Miss Marvel thus far. So again, while it wouldn't be ludicrous to say that, oh, we can start the Miss Marvel push right now, the marketing push, I think it would be very odd to see that, especially given the fact that they are about to enter what I believe is Hawkeye marketing. And honestly, I think the timing lines up. Now, what people have also been saying in conjunction to this, and this is, I'm tagging this at the end because I think it's more of a neutral piece of evidence. I honestly don't think it means anything, but it is something to note. What Entertainment Weekly said in its piece about Hawkeye is that this will be the next live-action Disney Plus show to come out, which insinuates that obviously, what if notwithstanding, that Miss Marvel should come after Hawkeye. Now, on the one hand, you can take that as evidence to say, yep, that means that Miss Marvel is coming in 2022 after Hawkeye. On the other hand, you could also just say that Entertainment Weekly, who is not a Victoria Alonso, which is why we talked about her at the beginning of this segment, because she knows these kinds of things. She should know these kinds of things. Entertainment Weekly is probably just making an assumption, like most of the rest of us, that, oh, well, after Loki, obviously, again, what if notwithstanding, that the next thing that they're going to put out is Hawkeye in the promotional materials, so Hawkeye is the next series. It's not a bad assumption to make, but I want to caution everyone to say that just because Entertainment Weekly said it doesn't necessarily mean that that is set in stone. So, again, there's some evidence to suggest that Miss Marvel might still come out this year, which I think is getting more doubtful by the day, that they don't announce a Miss Marvel release date or they don't put out a trailer. And honestly, I don't think that's such a bad thing. I think if you just let What If run its course, it's 10 episodes, you have Shang-Chi coming out, you have The Eternals coming out, and then you release Hawkeye, I don't think that's such a bad thing at all, honestly. I think that we do want some room to breathe with these shows, and I think that, canon notwithstanding, because I think that maybe there's some canon ramifications that might have gone into this decision as well. But again, who knows? I'm not Kevin Feige, and if I were Kevin Feige, I probably would have screwed the whole thing up. So that's that on Ms. Marvel.